I hope you guys have been enjoying our 20-year celebration. It's the month of fun, we're declaring it. So I think next up is Gospel Whiskey Runners concert this Saturday. So make sure you get your tickets. It's a fantastic band out of California, so it'll be a great time this Saturday night. Well, today we want to continue in our series entitled Never Church as Usual, as we have been looking at some of the lessons that we have learned over the last 20 years that has made us into the church that we are today. And this morning, we're going to take a look at and discuss what it means to be an authentic community. When we talk about Westridge as being never church as usual, and you see that phrase all the time around here, we're really talking about getting rid of as much man-made up stuff as possible, if that's even a real phrase. Getting rid of ego. Getting rid of church politics. That stuff has no place in the church, and the Bible makes that very clear. And really getting back to the biblical model of how the church was intended to be from the very, very beginning. And the passage that I think that gives us a glimpse into that more than anything else is found in the book of Acts chapter 2, because it tells the story of the very first days of what happened there in that very first church. So from chapter 2, starting with verse 42, we'll read some excerpts from that. It says, "All the believers devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship and to sharing in meals and to prayer. There was an intense sense of togetherness among all who believed. They shared all their material possessions for the benefit of others in the community and used the money to help everyone who had need. They met in each other's homes. They broke bread. They shared meals with joyful and generous hearts, all the while praising God and enjoying being in community with each other." I mean, that is a beautiful picture of the church, isn't it? Somehow down the line, we kind of lost that original image, and our goal is to get that back best we can. Because that church was in complete harmony. They were doing everything together. They did a lot of eating together, it looks like. And no one is in it for themselves. But instead, they are in it for each other. And I think the thing that strikes me the most about this passage more than anything else is that they were fully in. They were fully invested in what they were doing. They were fully committed to being in community with each other. And it reminds me of a metaphor that I like to use around here from time to time, which is from the business community. And it has this idea of having skin in the game, right? I'm an owner in a real estate investment firm, and part of my responsibility is to raise money from large Wall Street funds and to invest in our real estate transactions. And so if you see me in an actual suit, usually that means I'm out raising money trying to make people believe that I actually know what I'm talking about. So recently I've been trying to get a new development done here in the Fulton Market District of Chicago, and so I've been out raising money for this new venture. And over the last few weeks, I've been in serious negotiations with what I call my number one draft pick, the group I really want to get the deal done with. And so a couple weeks ago, they invited me in to meet with their entire investment committee. So I'm sitting there in their boardroom, and these guys are just grilling me one question after another, until finally I know exactly what the next question is going to be. And it was almost like it was on cue, where the investment officer turns to me and says, "Well, Darren, do you have any skin in the game?" And what he's really saying is, am I going to invest my own money in this deal? What they're saying is, you want us to put a significant amount of money in, so how much money are you willing to put in side by side with our money? Now, I have to tell you, that they don't really care about the amount that I invest, because the amount that I put in compared to theirs is like chump change. But what they care about is that based on my financial situation, they want to know that I am investing an amount that is meaningful to me. Because they know that when you have your own money in something, your heart is in that project. The more skin you have in a development, the more likely that you are to be extremely involved and committing an extraordinary amount of your time to ensure that your investment is protected and the development is successful, because you have a lot at stake, right? Well, believe it or not, I believe that the same thing holds true for the church. For the church to be a meaningful part of our life, we got to get some skin in the game. The more skin, the more of yourself you have invested in a place with your time and money and resources, the more skin you have in building relationships with other people in a church, the more invested you become, the more you want to be a part of it. The more you miss it when you're gone. The more you want to see God doing incredible things in this place. The more skin you have, the more meaningful the church is in your life. Best I can figure, there's somewhere in the neighborhood of about 1,000 people who call Westridge their home, which is an incredible testimony to what God is doing around this place. But the problem is that there have been very few of us with any kind of real skin in the game. Historically, over the past years, there have been probably 20 to 25% of us who are giving regularly, serving regularly, and have any kind of real connection to the church outside of the Sunday morning experience. But being a real estate developer, I am an eternal optimist, and I really believe that that's shifting. I can really feel that changing now because I've seen signs of it. I mean, when we put out that the ask for filling the truck for the hurricane relief down in Houston, everybody responded just like that. I mean, it was amazing how in 24 hours, how the entire community responded to help people in need. We have more people who are serving or connected in small groups than ever before, and we have more Westridgers giving on a regular basis than we ever have before. Now, I want to be very clear about something. Nobody here cares about how much money you give, or don't give for that matter. It is not about the money. When we talk about giving, it is not about the amount that matters. It is not about how much you give. What we always say is that it's not about equal giving, it's about equal sacrifice. We all have to, I think, come face to face with our own understanding of what God expects of us in the area of giving based on our own financial context. So just like the investors that I went to raise money from didn't care about how much money it was, they just wanted to make sure that it was a meaningful amount to me. That's the same thing that I think that God asks of us. It's not about writing a big check. It's about making a financial commitment on an ongoing basis that is meaningful to us, and you have to ask the question, am I risking something? Am I sacrificing something? What is a meaningful amount to me and my family, and what is it about giving that is going to help me grow in my faith? Now, you may not know it, but Westridge is a volunteer-driven church. And we have very few paid staff, and the paid staff that we have are not paid very well. And we do that because we want to maximize that all of the giving here goes to make an impact in people's lives. And so, for instance, while I'm the founder of Westridge, I am just a volunteer. So I put in 5 to 20 hours a week, depending on whether I'm speaking or not, But everything that I do here as a volunteer, and I never take a penny from this church. Instead, on the opposite end of the spectrum, my wife and I give a very large percentage of our income that is meaningful for us to Westridge because this is the place we want to be invested in. This is the place we believe in. We love this place. And if you know Westridge at all, if you've been around here, you know that we don't ask for money. We have a volunteer finance team that does its best to monitor things on a regular basis, to keep everything accountable, to keep expenses low and at par so that we always keep the church afloat, so that we can always keep giving where it should be, which is between you and God. People ask me all the time when the church hits a financial low. And every time we come out of what we call the summer slump, and people don't give in the summer, and so every time we come out of that summer slump, just like this year, and we have a financial low, and people ask me to go out and hit everybody up for money and say, hey, we got to have money to make the bills. You've never heard me say that in 20 years. That's because I don't believe in it. I believe that if we are to keep the biblical model of giving, then that is something that's going to have to come from you. That's a conviction that is inside of you, that's born out of your relationship with God, where you become so grateful for the grace that God has given you that you just have to do something, and giving is one of those things. And as far as the bills are concerned, we have a 20-year history of God always pulling through. We're still here. Giving is about something going on inside of us where God stirs in us. And he helps us to understand the place that money has in our life, and it creates in us a capacity to give, and it creates in us a desire to give, and as we grow in our relationship with God, a desire to give more, which is a little crazy, but it's true. I love that about Westridge. I love that we have held true to the vision of Westridge from the very beginning, and that's why I love being part of this church. It's been incredible to watch the transformation that God is making in the hearts of the people who have been putting skin in Westridge. And now there are so many of you who are serving in the kids ministry or in the cafe or in greeting or out in the parking lot or giving your hard-earned money because you believe in the mission and the values of this place. And I will promise you this, that we as a church will always do whatever it takes to minimize the expenses and to maximize the amount of money that we use to impact people's lives. That the money that you invest here will pay great dividends because it'll make a difference in lives of people that will last for all of eternity. The danger is, however, when we just sit on the sidelines, and it's okay to sit on the sidelines for a while and explore your faith and investigate, that's all good, but there comes a point where we can't rely on the 20 or 25% of the church to keep everything going. And so I would challenge you to ask yourself, if Westridge is the place for me, do I have any skin in the game here at Westridge? How am I invested in this place? Is this just a place that I come a couple Sundays a month? Or am I for real about this Christianity thing to the point that I want to grow in my faith? I want to grow in my relationship with God, and I want to walk in the ways that God asked me to walk. And when we do that, it changes our view of church and the significance that it has in our lives. Look at that passage again. It says, there was an intense sense of togetherness among all who believed. They met in each other's homes. They broke bread. They shared meals with joyful and generous hearts. This passage certainly implies to me that part of having skin in the game is being committed to having authentic community with a group of people within the context of the church. We have to become connected to the church more than just Sunday mornings. And that looks different for everybody. So for instance, I'm a pretty introverted guy. And so the idea of going into a small group with a group of people that I don't know Scares the crap out of me. And so I wasn't in a small group for a long time until I figured out there's no rules about this thing. Like, you can do things on your own terms. And so I got up the courage to ask a group of guys whom I trust to come and meet at my house twice a month and drink some wine and talk about God and our spiritual journey and the obstacles and the challenges that we have in our faith and in our marriages and how we can grow and how we can help each other and support each other. And now I have to tell you, I'm all in. Like, I can't imagine not having that group of guys in my life now. People ask me all the time, does Westridge have a membership? And the answer is no, we don't, because we never want to be a place that excludes people or make them feel like they are on the outside, because we all want to be a very inclusive community. But the truth of the matter is that a lot of churches are filled with members who aren't invested in the church. When you are giving of your time and your money and your resources to a place, that is more meaningful than being able to call yourself a member, because you are invested here. When that happens, you give a rip. You care about people that you know nothing about. You care about whether or not the church is reaching people who are far from God, people who are lost, people who are hurting. You care that what you're doing to serve isn't just filling a hole, that you're actually filling a need and making a difference in somebody's life that will last for all of eternity. You care. Do you care about Westridge enough to call it your church home? If you do, then I would just give you this challenge. Dig in. Plant roots. Get involved. Figure out ways that you can get connected. Serve. Contribute in a way that's meaningful for you, and make this an important part of your life. When we put that kind of work into the church, as they did in the very first church, it becomes more than just a Sunday morning thing. This place becomes home, family, authentic community. Look, Westridge is not for everybody, and I get that. And if this place is not right for you, then I would encourage you to go and find a church that is right for you. We are not competing for people in the church business. We want you to be at a place where you can grow and thrive, and wherever that is, go to that place. But wherever that is for you, make a commitment. It's good to look around a bit. It's good to do a little church hopping, but there comes a point where we have to stop the hopping and plant roots. And come hell or high water, commit to spending the rest of your life at that place. Because the church is not about what it can do for you. It is, how can I become part of this community of people? How can I contribute? How can I give more than I take from the church? As I say every birthday Sunday here at Westridge, I have every intention of spending the rest of my life here at Westridge. So unfortunately, you're not getting rid of me anytime soon. But this is not just some gig for me. This is not just something I do and, until something better comes around. This is a commitment that I have to all of you to being an authentic community together. And hopefully you realize really quickly that around here, we really are doing the journey together. Because more than anything else, we just want to be able to make it to the end of the narrow dirt path that leads to Jesus together. That we help each other, we support each other, we cheerlead each other. We help each other struggle to the very end. This journey ain't easy. And God designed this place so that we could do it together. God didn't create the church for no good reason. God created the church himself. Not me or anybody else. God made this thing up, so you can blame him for all this church stuff. And for that reason alone, we have to take a higher view of what the church is all about, because this place is sacred. Because it is of God. Here's the reality of it. We have the life of Christ in the Gospels. We have the story of how he died, how he rose from the dead, how he ascended into heaven, and the whole rest of the Bible is how do we figure out this church thing? It is so important that the entire rest of the Bible is dedicated to how we do church, how we do life, how we do God together. He didn't make this whole church thing up so that we could just kind of casually attend. He wants us to be fully in, fully invested. The church is worth investing our lives in because the Bible says that at the end of the day, when the world ends, the church is the only thing that will be left standing. I want to be part of that. The thing I love about this church is that over our 20-year history together, we have faced down one challenge after another, and we have never, ever wavered. There have been times of sorrow, there have been times of pain, there have been times of joy. There's been moments when it seems like the church isn't even going to make it, and there's times when we're flying high. But through it all, man, you could feel the presence of God in this thing. When you see how involved God has been in the history of our little church, it's humbling. And it makes you want to be part of that. And as a result, I think that Westridge is one of the most unique churches that I've ever seen in my life. Over the last 20 years of being at Westridge, I've learned a lot about what it means to be part of a church. I've learned that no matter how hard we try, we can't do it on our own. I've learned that we get back out of a church what we put in. And I have learned that one of the most important lessons of all, and that is, if the church is going to make a difference in my life, then we have to make a lifetime commitment to a community of people to be there in the good times and the bad. And when times get tough, we don't cut and run. We get each other's backs. We don't tear each other down ever. We build each other up. We have this intense sense of togetherness that is beautiful as we help each other cross the finish line of this life together with our faith intact. That's what authentic community looks like. That's a little something we call church. That's Westridge. And for me, that's home.